Ben, a 70-year-old widower, decides to apply for an internship after seeing a flyer that invites senior citizens to send in a video explaining why they should be hired. In his video, he shares that he has lived a comfortable life but now wants to be more productive. A few days later, he gets a call for an interview at a company called About the Fit. The company is an online clothing retailer founded by Jules Austin, who started it in her kitchen. In just 18 months, the company has grown to over 200 employees. Jules is a dedicated and hardworking CEO. She personally answers customer service calls, like one from a bride upset about her bridesmaids' dresses being the wrong color. Jules apologizes, takes full responsibility, and promises to fix the mistake. She even gives the bride her personal phone number to make sure everything is resolved. She moves quickly through the office on a bike and is always busy. She rarely takes time to celebrate birthdays at work or have full conversations with her mother. Ben arrives for his interview and meets with several people. He talks about his past job at a company that made phone books. When one of the interviewers asks where he sees himself in 10 years, they quickly realize the question doesn't quite fit his situation. They tell him he did very well in his interviews and video, but he has much more experience than needed for the role. Jules's co-worker, Cameron, informs her that Ben has been assigned as her intern. He reminds her that they had agreed to the senior internship program a few months ago. Jules asks how long she has to keep him, and Cameron tells her that the minimum period is 6 weeks since she needs to set an example. On his first day, Ben dresses sharply and arrives at the office on time. Jason, another employee, introduces him to 3 other interns, 2 senior citizens, including Doris, and a younger man, Davis. While Davis fills his desk with gadgets, Ben keeps his setup simple, with basic stationery, a calculator, and a watch. The other employees are welcoming and help him get started with his computer. Jules's assistant, Becky, tells Ben that he has a meeting with Jules at exactly 3:55 p.m. She warns him to be punctual because another meeting starts at 4 p.m. Becky also gives him unusual advice, to talk fast and blink often, as Jules is unsettled by people who don't. At the meeting, Jules tells Ben that she won't have much work for him. She adds that if something comes up, she will email him. Ben doesn't hear from Jules for a few days, but he stays busy by learning how things work at the company. He figures out the technology and helps others whenever he can. His friendly nature earns him the nickname, Mr. Congeniality, from Cameron. He also shares wise advice with the younger employees. For example, when Jason struggles to get a response from Becky after cheating on her, Ben tells him to talk to her properly instead of relying on vague text messages. His first assigned task comes from Becky, who asks him to get Jules's jacket cleaned. She spilled soy sauce on it but is still wearing it, so he has to retrieve it from her. Meanwhile, in the office, Cameron informs Jules that the investors feel the company is growing too fast. They believe a seasoned CEO could help manage operations better and keep up with their success. Ben overhears the conversation as Jules becomes visibly upset at the idea of having a boss. Although she admits the company has problems, she doesn't like the thought of giving up control. Cameron urges her to look at the list of potential CEOs and take her time meeting them before making a decision. Ben starts gaining more attention around the office. He earns praise when he clears out a messy desk that had become a dumping spot, something that had constantly annoyed Jules. To recognize his effort, the office rings a bell, a tradition used to highlight good work. Fiona, the office masseuse, gives Ben a massage, and it's clear he is attracted to her. Davis notices and jokingly hands him a magazine to cover his lap, remarking that Ben isn't as old as he thought. One day, Ben notices that Jules's driver has been drinking on the job. He warns the driver to inform Jules that he cannot drive, or Ben will have to report him. With no other choice, Ben takes over as the driver. As Jules gets into the car, she tells Ben she prefers to sit in the back and will be making calls that should remain confidential. Her first call is with her mother, who tells her that women who sleep less are more likely to gain weight. Their conversation makes it clear they don't have a great relationship. Next, she calls Cameron and informs him that she has agreed to meet one of the CEOs from the list. However, the meeting ends quickly, and Cameron suspects she isn't making a real effort. Meanwhile, Ben notices that Jules hasn't eaten, so he buys her a cup of soup. On the way home, he gently tells her that she should rest more and reminds her that she built the company from nothing, encouraging her to trust herself. At home, Jules is greeted by her daughter, Paige, and her husband, Matt, who is a stay-at-home dad. He looks disappointed that the CEO meeting didn't go well. Despite this, he is actively involved in their daughter's life, and Paige seems happy and loved. That night, Jules falls asleep in Paige's bed. When she later returns to her own, Matt is already asleep and too tired for intimacy. The next morning, Becky calls Ben, telling him that Jules's driver isn't responding, and he needs to pick her up again. When Ben arrives, Matt invites him inside for coffee while he waits. Paige and Matt seem to like Ben, and he quietly observes their family dynamics. At the school playground, Ben notices how the other mothers seem to judge Jules for being a busy career woman while she drops Paige off. Later in the day, at the company's warehouse, Jules efficiently handles a problem, and Ben is impressed by her leadership. Ben visits Fiona in her office, where she gives him a foot rub. Suddenly, Davis walks in, sees them from an awkward angle, and misinterprets the situation, thinking something inappropriate is happening. He quickly runs away, embarrassed. Meanwhile, Lewis, another employee, has to deliver a package to an address he suspects belongs to Jay-Z. Before he leaves, Ben gives him some fashion advice on how to dress more appropriately for the occasion. Jason, on the other hand, has made progress with Becky after taking Ben's advice and speaking to her properly. One evening, while Jules is working late, Ben stays behind, waiting to drive her home. She brings over her pizza and sits with him, eating and talking. He asks her about a meeting with another CEO, which didn't go well either. They start discussing their pasts, and Ben tells her about his old job, which was in the same building before phone books became obsolete. They bond over the conversation, and she helps him set up his Facebook account. While adding him as a friend, she learns more about him. The next day, Doris arrives to pick Jules up. The 6-week period Jules was required to have an intern is over, and Ben has been transferred to another department. Since Doris, at 72, cannot drive, Jules takes over and calls Cameron, asking for Ben back. She then goes to find Ben at a coffee shop, where he is picking up coffee for his new department. She helps him carry the cups and apologizes, admitting that she feels calmer when he is around. She offers him his old job back and moves his workspace closer to hers, right next to Becky. Becky, already overwhelmed with her workload, starts crying. She feels threatened by Ben's return, as she is a business graduate from Penn but struggles to keep up. Jason comforts her and gives her Ben's handkerchief, while Ben reassures her that he is not a threat. Ben's keen observations and experience start proving invaluable. Jules increasingly trusts him with responsibilities, much to Cameron's surprise. Noticing Becky's hard work and business degree, Ben encourages Jules to acknowledge her contributions, which boosts Becky's confidence. Meanwhile, Davis, who had a deadline to move out of his parents' house, announces that he's relocating to Philadelphia to stay with his cousin. Realizing the commute would be exhausting, Ben generously offers him a room at his place. Davis is impressed by Ben's elegant home and refined wardrobe, particularly his collection of handkerchiefs, which Ben insists every gentleman should carry. The next morning, at Jules's house, Matt declines a trip to San Francisco with her due to Paige's school activities. Jules, already juggling a work crisis, grows frustrated when her overbearing mother calls. In a moment of irritation, she drafts a long, ranting email about her mom and intends to send it to Matt, but accidentally sends it to her mother instead. Panicked, she turns to her coworkers for help. Ben steps up and offers to go to her mother's house to delete the email before she returns home at 5:30 p.m. Jason, Davis, and Lewis accompany him. After a few hiccups, they successfully remove the email just in time. That night, Jules treats them all to drinks as a thank you. For the first time, she lets loose and truly bonds with them. She drinks a little too much and ends up throwing up in a trash bin outside. Meanwhile, Ben and Fiona's relationship progresses. As their first official date, he takes her to the funeral of an old friend, a strangely fitting outing given their personalities. Ben picks up Jules the next morning and finds Matt pretending to be sick while Paige is upset about attending a party with a sitter. To help, Ben agrees to take Paige himself. At the party, he gracefully defends Jules's dedication to her career in front of a group of judgmental moms, framing her success as a victory for all working mothers. However, when Paige starts feeling unwell, Ben leaves the party early. On the way home, he unexpectedly discovers Matt sneaking out of a woman's house and getting into her car, clearly having an affair. Since Paige is asleep, Ben drives around the neighborhood, giving Matt a few hours to return home before finally dropping Paige off. Matt, trying to justify himself, brings up the CEO situation, hoping it will improve their marriage. Ben, unimpressed, responds that hiring a CEO won't fix what's truly broken at home. Matt is visibly shaken by this remark. Back at the office, Jules, who is finally making an effort to be part of her team's social activities, joins in a coworker's birthday celebration. Meanwhile, Ben, still disturbed by what he saw, experiences a spike in his blood pressure, concerning his colleagues. The next day, they fly to San Francisco for Jules's meeting. On the plane, Jules notices Ben is unusually quiet and calls him out on it, pointing out that he avoids eye contact and barely blinks when keeping something from her. Ben, ever the gentleman, deflects by admitting he's just a sentimental guy beneath his composed exterior and suggests they simply enjoy their first-class flight. That night, a fire alarm disrupts their sleep at the hotel. After evacuating, Ben walks Jules back to her room, and it's clear she doesn't want to be alone. She invites him in and, after some small talk, asks about his late wife. Eventually, she confesses that she found out 18 days ago that Matt was cheating on her. Ben hesitates before revealing that he saw Matt with the other woman the previous day. Jules breaks down, and Ben gently comforts her, assuring her that she deserves both a thriving career and a fulfilling marriage, if that's what she truly wants. He reminds her that hiring a CEO should be her decision alone, not something she does to fix her relationship. The next day, her meeting with the potential CEO lasts longer than any of the others. When she finally emerges, she tells Ben she hired him on the spot, though the CEO advised her to take time to think about it. Back home, Jules informs Matt of her decision, believing it will be great for us. When Matt questions who us refers to, she clarifies that she meant their marriage, not her company, about the fit. However, later that night, as she soaks in the bathtub, the weight of her choice settles in. Tears silently fall as she realizes she may have made the decision for all the wrong reasons. The next morning, Jules visits Ben and is surprised to see Davis leaving his apartment, followed by Fiona. Amused, she teases Ben about his unexpected houseguests before telling him that hiring the CEO still feels like the right decision. Ben listens carefully, then reminds her of their conversation at the warehouse. He tells her that no one, no matter how experienced, will ever care about the fit the way she does. He questions whether giving up control of her company in hopes that Matt will stop cheating makes sense. Deep down, he believes she already knows the answer, she just needed someone to say it out loud. Jules takes it all in, then admits that she came to see him not just for advice but because he's her best friend. Later at the office, she receives a thank you note and pictures from the bridesmaid whose order she personally handled at the beginning of the movie. She also gets flowers from the CEO she met in San Francisco. With newfound clarity, she tells Becky to put him on the phone in a firm, decisive voice. Just then, Matt walks in. Before he can speak, she tells him she knows about the affair. He looks guilty, about to admit it, but she cuts him off and asks if it's over. Matt, emotional, tells her he doesn't want to lose her. He insists she shouldn't hire a CEO for his sake, she needs to do what's right for herself. They promise to do better and share a heartfelt kiss. With her mind made up, Jules rushes to find Ben. She spots him practicing Tai Chi with a group and joins in, taking a deep breath as she finally lets herself slow down and embrace the moment. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.